The sheriff pinned a lawsuit notice to my front door, suing me for refusing to join an HOA I never agreed to. My deed clearly excluded my lot. Yet Karen Whitmore demanded 5 years of back dues plus penalties. She smiled at the mailbox that morning and said, "You'll learn respect for this community, one way or another." I'm Maren Ellis, a single mother raising my son Cole in the quiet cul-de-sac house my grandfather built decades ago. Our street sat inside Brookhaven Estates, but our 4 original lots were carved out before the HOA ever existed. Karen became HOA president 2 years earlier, determined to modernize the neighborhood into a gated, uniform showcase. She sent welcome packets to every house, including ours, demanding dues, flag restrictions, and approved paint colors. I politely returned mine with a copy of my deed, explaining our lots were legally exempt from membership. Karen never responded. Instead, notices about community standards started appearing on my porch weekly. One Tuesday, a bright pink violation notice cited my garden gnomes as unauthorized lawn ornamentation. I laughed it off, assuming a mistake, until a second notice threatened a $200 fine per day. At the next open meeting, Karen singled me out, calling my home an eyesore dragging down property values. I stood and calmly reminded everyone my lot wasn't part of the HOA, showing the recorded exemption clause. Karen's smile flickered. "We'll see what our attorney says about that," she snapped, ending the meeting early. Within a week, a certified letter arrived. Brookhaven HOA was suing me for unpaid dues and willful non-compliance. My stomach dropped reading the amount demanded, nearly $4,000 for services I never received. I called the county recorder's office, who confirmed my property had never been annexed into the association. Armed with that, I filed a simple response, expecting Karen to drop the frivolous lawsuit immediately. Instead, she doubled down, posting in the neighborhood app that I was stealing resources from honest homeowners. Neighbors I'd known for years started avoiding eye contact, whispering as I walked Cole to the bus stop. My car, parked legally in my own driveway, was suddenly tagged and towed for blocking community aesthetics. The towing fee alone cost me $300 I didn't have room in my budget for. Karen posted a photo of the empty driveway online, captioning it, "Consequences for those who don't cooperate." Cole came home crying because another kid said his mom was the lady stealing HOA money. I tried reasoning with Karen directly, knocking on her door with my deed folder in hand. She barely opened it, saying, "Legal exemptions are outdated. Everyone contributes, or everyone suffers the consequences." That night, someone spray-painted "Pay Up" across my mailbox, though no cameras caught who did it. I filed a police report, but the officer said HOA disputes were mostly civil, not criminal matters. Karen's ally on the board, quiet man named Rick, privately texted me an apology for the harassment. He warned me Karen had done this before to another exempt homeowner, who eventually sold and moved away. For a few weeks, things went eerily quiet. No notices, no towing, almost like Karen had backed off. I allowed myself to relax slightly, focusing on Cole's school recital and finally repainting our fence. Rick mentioned Karen was handling something bigger behind closed doors, refusing to elaborate further on specifics. I assumed the lawsuit had quietly died, since I'd heard nothing from the court in weeks. That assumption shattered when a process server arrived, handing me an amended, far more aggressive complaint. The new lawsuit claimed I owed retroactive dues dating back to before I even inherited the property. Karen's lawyer alleged my grandfather had verbally agreed to join the association decades ago, an outright fabrication. I contacted my grandfather's old neighbor, Mr. Alvarez, who confirmed no such conversation ever happened between them. He agreed to write a signed statement, remembering clearly when the original developer excluded our 4 lots. Karen somehow learned about this and visited Mr. Alvarez, pressuring him to reconsider his memory of events. He called me shaken, saying she'd implied his HOA-adjacent daughter could face review if he testified against them. Furious, I recorded the call and added it to the growing folder of Karen's escalating behavior. Meanwhile, a lien appeared on my property records, filed by the HOA without any court judgment yet. My mortgage lender flagged the lien, threatening complications with my upcoming refinance application because of it. I hired an attorney, Priya Nandakumar, who specialized in HOA disputes and seemed genuinely outraged by my case. She reviewed everything and said flatly, "This isn't just aggressive. This looks like fraud on their part." Priya requested Brookhaven HOA's official corporate filings from the state to verify their standing to sue. While waiting, Karen escalated further, having the association's landscaping crew accidentally destroy my grandmother's rose garden. I confronted her at her mailbox, and she simply shrugged, saying, "Maybe join us and this stops happening." A neighbor, Denise, secretly filmed the exchange on her phone, later sending it to me privately. Denise whispered that she'd been overcharged dues for years and suspected Karen wasn't reporting funds honestly. She showed me a spreadsheet she'd built comparing paid dues against the HOA's public reserve fund balance. The numbers didn't add up. Thousands of dollars seemed to vanish between collection and the reported reserves. I forwarded everything to Priya, who added financial mismanagement to our growing list of concerns. Karen, sensing resistance building, called an emergency board meeting to push through a new compliance policy. The policy allowed the HOA to place liens on any resident who publicly disparaged board leadership. It was clearly aimed at silencing me, Denise, and anyone questioning Karen's increasingly erratic decisions. Rick voted against it, the lone dissenting voice, and Karen removed him from the board the next day. She cited a bylaw technicality, though Rick swore the bylaws contained no such removal clause. My lawn was mowed at midnight by an anonymous crew, leaving deep ruts and destroying my sprinkler system. Repair costs hit $600, money I genuinely couldn't spare while fighting a lawsuit simultaneously. Cole started having nightmares about the mean lady watching our house, which broke my heart completely. I installed security cameras, catching Karen herself walking our property line late one Thursday night. The footage showed her photographing our garden and muttering notes into her phone near the fence. Priya used this footage to file a restraining order request, citing harassment and property intimidation. Karen's response was a public statement calling me unstable and a threat to community harmony. Local Facebook groups exploded with debate, some neighbors defending me, others parroting Karen's talking points blindly. A reporter from the local paper reached out, having heard whispers about the escalating HOA dispute. Karen refused to comment for the article, instead threatening legal action against the newspaper itself. The story ran anyway, painting a portrait of an HOA president wielding power far beyond her authority. Karen's response was swift and vicious. She raised HOA fines specifically targeting non-compliant exempt properties. The fine, absurdly, applied only to 4 addresses total, all of which happened to be mine and neighbors questioning her. Denise received a cease and desist letter for defamation, simply for sharing her dues spreadsheet publicly. I felt the walls closing in, wondering if fighting back was even worth the mounting financial strain. Priya reassured me, saying the state's corporate records request had finally come back with answers. She sat me down, sliding a document across the table with a small, knowing smile. Brookhaven Homeowners Association's corporate charter was administratively dissolved 4 years ago for failing to file reports. That meant Karen had been operating, suing, and fining residents as an entity that legally didn't exist. Priya explained that without valid incorporation, the HOA had no legal standing to sue anyone for dues. Every lien, every fine, every lawsuit filed during those 4 years was potentially void from the start. We also discovered Karen never disclosed the dissolution to the board or any homeowners, ever. Denise's financial spreadsheet suddenly made painful sense. Funds collected under a dead entity had nowhere legitimate to go. Priya filed a motion to dismiss my case entirely, citing the HOA's total lack of legal existence. She also filed a countersuit alleging fraud, harassment, and misuse of collected homeowner funds against Karen personally. The court date arrived faster than expected, and Karen showed up wearing a crisp navy blazer, confident as ever. Her attorney argued the dissolution was a mere clerical oversight that didn't affect the HOA's authority. Priya calmly presented the state filings, the lien timeline, and Denise's financial discrepancies side by side. The judge's expression shifted from neutral to visibly skeptical as each document landed on the record. "You filed liens as an unincorporated entity," the judge said. "That's not an oversight." Whitmore. Karen's composure cracked slightly, insisting the board had always intended to refile the paperwork eventually. Priya then introduced Mr. Alvarez's signed statement, exposing Karen's attempt to pressure a witness into lying. The courtroom murmured as the judge asked Karen directly whether she'd visited Mr. Alvarez's home. She hesitated, then admitted it, claiming she was merely checking on an elderly neighbor's well-being. Mr. Alvarez, present in the gallery, shook his head firmly, contradicting her version of events. Next, Priya revealed the security footage of Karen trespassing on my property late at night. The judge watched in silence, then asked Karen to explain her presence near my fence at midnight. Karen stammered about routine landscaping inspections, a claim nobody in the courtroom seemed to believe. Denise then testified about years of unexplained gaps between collected dues and the HOA's reported reserve balance. An HOA financial auditor, subpoenaed by Priya, confirmed nearly $11,000 couldn't be accounted for. The judge asked Karen point-blank where that missing money had gone over the past 2 years. She had no coherent answer, only vague references to administrative expenses nobody could substantiate with receipts. The judge announced a recess, returning 20 minutes later with a decision that silenced the entire room. This association has operated illegally for 4 years. Effective immediately. Every lien against my property, every fine, every lawsuit filed under that dead entity was dismissed and erased. The judge referred the missing funds and witness intimidation to the district attorney for further investigation. Karen was escorted out separately, her blazer suddenly looking far less impressive than an hour before. Within weeks, criminal charges for embezzlement and witness tampering were formally filed against her by the state. Neighbors who once avoided me started apologizing, admitting they'd been too afraid of Karen to speak up. Denise organized a small gathering to properly reform Brookhaven's community group, this time transparent and voluntary. Cole planted new roses where the destroyed garden once stood. Smiling for the first time in months, I stood in my driveway, finally free of liens, lawsuit, and Karen's shadow looming over my fence. Vandy.